Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. The WBA's flirtation with unbeaten American Christopher Lovejoy is over, the sanctioning body dumping the American from its latest rankings update. So Lovejoy, he had actually been at number 12, so I'll cover him being dumped altogether first because that's the most interesting facet of the rankings update for me at least, and then we'll get to the rest of the top 15 in its entirety, and we have the inclusion of a guy who may be facing Joseph Parker or potentially in line to. But starting with Lovejoy, because it's a really interesting case. A guy who's currently unbeaten, 19-0, has fought almost exclusively in club fights in Tijuana. No one really knows how good he is. No one really has seen much footage of him of these fights. And it's hard to say how really good he is, but the WBA in the past couple of years, first time back in 2018, ranked him. He was there for a few months and then gone. And then also in 2019, towards the back end of the year, same again. Despite only having one fight in 2019, he got back into the rankings and got as high as 12, where he was last month. And now this month, gone. Completely gone altogether, despite actually having had a fight. So he might not have been too active in 2019, having just the one fight, but he did have a fight on January 25th, and that was, of course, again, back in a club fight down in Tijuana. So Lovejoy, despite the recent activity, having been at number 12, gone burger. So it's hard to say what's really gone on here. Maybe the WBA tired of him. Maybe he didn't pay his sanctioning fees. It could be as simple as that. But the unbeaten Lovejoy, the second flirtation by the WBA with him, he is gone altogether. And a lot of people had been asking the question of Lovejoy, how could he have even got into the rankings given the level of opposition, some of the fights that he'd had? Because most of the opponents losing records, barely any sort of wins on most of the opponents that he's faced. I mean, the guy that he most recently fought had one of the better records, had 12 wins on his record. I think that might be the second best out of all his 19 opponents, but obviously 15 losses too. So yeah, there were a number of people asking, how did Lovejoy even manage to get into the top 15 for the WBA? And looking at his box rec, you see here on screen, he's rated the world number 438. And that speaks to the level of competition, because obviously box rec is an algorithm type system. You get points for facing guys who have points. And most of the guys that Lovejoy has faced have been, really well down the sort of list. So they haven't had many points for him to actually take. Hence his lowly ranking of 438. The other week he was 441. So you can sort of see, despite the win just on January 25th, it's not like it really did much to actually boost his stock in the box rec ranking system. And Lovejoy, obviously on social media, quite an entertaining character, saying that he's the world number 12, etc. But I guess he will have to drop that for the time being and work his way back into the rankings. So he was meant to have had a fight in Las Vegas in February this month, but don't know what happened there. Probably pulled out of that one because of the fight in Mexico just the other week. But yeah, it's an interesting story how, one, he got into the rankings to begin with and maintained a ranking for a few months, and now he's gone altogether, just like he was never there. So Christopher Lovejoy, gone burger. But to the rest of the top 15 proper, and actually not a lot of change at the sort of top end of the rankings, you do have Trevor Bryan. He's at number 1, and I did actually ask him a couple of questions on Instagram just in recent days, and he has indicated he will be back in action this year, hoping to have a couple of championship fights, but we shall see. Alexander Usyk remains firm at number 2, so he is going to be having his shot in the WBO. He's the WBO mandatory, so whenever that happens, he is going to drop down. Likely that Adam Kovnatski, if he keeps winning, will just keep rising slowly up the rankings. Kovnatski currently at number 3. He's got his fight on March 7th at the Barclays against Robert Helenius. That's actually shaping up to be a pretty decent heavyweight card. I think 4 heavyweight fights. You also have F.A.R. Jagber on the card, also Frank Sanchez Foray and Robert Alfonso. At number 4 is Luis Ortiz holding firm. Andy Ruiz, no change at number 5. Had been some talk he may face Dillian Whyte, but that seems to have disappeared into nothing. Robert Helenius, of course, having, as I reported a month or so ago, magically appeared in the WBA rankings at number 6. He has got that fight with Adam Kovnatski. So he will probably find himself falling down or out of the rankings if he loses to Kovnatski. But he's an outside chance in that fight because he is a good puncher and Kovnatski does fade. So if Helenius can hang around and if he can actually let the hammer go and find the target, he's not completely out of it. He could have a shot there. Alexander Povetkin, Michael Hunter, Derek Chisora, and Ajit Kabial, they fill 7 through 10. No change there. Neither is at 11, which is Kubrat Pulev. And this is where the changes start. Obviously, Christopher Lovejoy gone. Sergey Kuzmin up 1 spot. Mladen Milas up to 13. And at 14, the new inclusion into the rankings is Shawndell Winters. And he has been mooted as a potential opponent for Joseph Parker. And you may notice in this top 15, Joseph Parker not ranked. So you could make a case, given there's going to be some sort of tune-up by the look of it for Parker at the end of February, that Winters makes some sense, at least from a ranking standpoint. Obviously another tune-up, no one really wants to see that, but he needs some rounds, and it looks like it's either going to be Marius Wok, Shawndell Winters, or someone on that level. There's a couple of other names apparently that they have been looking at, but there has been a delay in announcing the opponent, and that could be linked to the Anthony Joshua decision about who he's fighting next, because if Alexander Usyk ends up fighting for a vacant title, Parker at number 2 in the WBO could be Johnny on the spot. But Winters, comes into the rankings, I believe, for the first time, and it's quite curious because he fought Alexander Teslenko, that was back in September, and I believe he took his NABA title, that's the minor title that he's got now. Then he fought Sergey Waweko back in November, but neither in the November or December updates was Winters included, and you would think after the second win, well, maybe he'd push his way in. But now at the end of January, somehow he's made his way in. And clearly, obviously, at the expense of Christopher Lovejoy. And of course, eternally at number 15 is Frez Akendo. Who knows if the WBA will tidy up that situation. He is owed a title shot that is enforceable by a court order. Who knows what will happen with that. But Lovejoy, Gonberger, Shawndell Winters in. He's in the frame potentially to face Joseph Parker. And a little bit of movement at the back end of that 15. But a reasonably stable top 15 for the WBA. Although a lot of people would look at some of the names, especially towards the sort of top end, and go, is that the sort of order that it should be, given some of the guys that they've been facing, a la Trevor Bryan, or not facing anyone at all, as it is in the case of Trevor Bryan for the past 18 months. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.